came from the internet. And I find this quite interesting in the sense of the 13 books that I've done, which is longer than some people's career, shorter than others, but those 13 books span the internet era completely. When I did that first book, I didn't have even a computer. I knew nobody who had the internet or anything like that. And I remember in that first book, I had one character send to another character an email, thinking, wow, these are cutting-edge guys. This is the future, And then second book, third book, I got a computer. I eventually got on the internet. I got email and all this kind of stuff. And then broadband and everything. And I got into a routine of looking at a set number of websites and so on. And then I got out of that routine into just a kind of free-form web surfing thing, and I love doing that, where you can just follow randomly from one link to another, just go all over the place. You find some fantastic stuff. And I stumbled upon an anonymous message board run by the Metropolitan Police in London. They all had screen names. They were posting anonymously, and therefore they were very uninhibited about what they were saying. They were working policemen. They hated their superiors. They hated their junior officers. They hated the public. They hated everything. And at that time, the summer of 2005, there had been the transportation system bombings in London. Remember, in the London Tube and on a bus. And then very shortly after that, a completely innocent Brazilian person had been shot to death on the London subway. They followed him down there, assuming he was some kind of terrorism suspect, shot him to death, and it turned out he had nothing to do with anything. And so this message board was talking about that. There was a certain amount of cover your ass going on, but there was also, for hard-bitten cops, there was just genuine grief and upset that they had made this tragic mistake. And they were saying, how could this happen? And the first answer that came up was, it was the list. He was showing all 12 points. And I thought, what list? What 12 points? So then I searched some more. You Google list 12 points, counterterrorism, whatever. And I came up with a list that had been developed over 20 years, starting in the Middle East, with eyewitnesses, law enforcement officers, and psychologists. It was a list of 12 visual and behavioral indicators that if they're all present, that person is a suicide bomber about to go into action. Not that he might be, not that you call it in or make a note. You must assume in that instant that that person is a suicide bomber about to go into action, and therefore you must prevent that person from doing anything else, which effectively means you have to shoot him. You shoot the person, you take one life, hoping to save 200. And I just thought, wow, what an awesome moment that is. Suppose you are in law enforcement, and suppose that is your duty, you know this list, and you see somebody that matches that list, what a dreadful moment that is. You know that in the next split second, you have to take out your gun and shoot the guy. What if you're wrong? What if you're right? It's just an awful moment. So I thought, okay, I'm putting Reacher in that situation. That's idea number one for the book. Idea number two actually came from Andrew's daughter, who's called Katie, and she had to write a story for school about a good person and a bad person. And I happened to be visiting with them, and Katie told me that her bad person was a girl called Lila Hoff. And I said, how do you spell that, Katie? And she said, H-O-T-H, Lila Hoff. And the way a writer's mind works is you hear a name like that and you go, wow, what you just instantly know that character. You know what she looks like, what she's doing, how she's doing it, what she's up to, the whole thing. She's instantly a fully formed character, Lila Hoff. So I said, Katie, I'm stealing that name for my next book. And at, what was she, 9 or something at that time, she was smart enough to say, do I get royalties? And I was smart enough to say, no, Katie, you don't. But I'll send you a copy. So, Lila Hoff, then this subway incident and Lila Hoff, how did that interact? And the research for the subway, I live in New York, I ride the subway all the time, but what was totally fascinating to me was I literally ride it all the time. Everywhere I go in the city, I use the subway. But when I came to write that scene, I could not picture exactly what the subway car looked like. It's bizarre, something you do every day, you're so familiar with it, you don't even see it anymore. So at that point, I actually did some research, which is very unusual for me. I left the office and actually went and got on the subway and rode a couple of stops up and a couple of stops back and noted everything I needed to know.